I recently received a perfectly well-meaning and innocent Independence Day message, which said, "Independence Day is a day to remember the people who believed in our freedom and paved the way for every American to have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." It occurs to me that this is not quite true. It assumes that the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is something that we only have in the future and never had before. Did you know that the Declaration of Independence, for which the date of July 4th is celebrated, actually claims that these rights have existed from the creation? They were not claimed to be new in 1776. The only thing the Declaration claims to be new is that the British government had become destructive of the ends of those rights, which, all believed, had long been enshrined in the standards of English liberty, but were being disregarded and ignored by their current king and parliament. The Founding Fathers did not think that government could create new natural rights any more than it could create new physical laws. Governments were only safeguards of the ends of rights, which, the Declaration asserted, are the people's by nature, and are by nature because that is how they were created, by their Creator. In other words, by God. When political commentators speak of people having rights in one society which they do not have in another society, this can only be shorthand, in the Declaration's view, for whether or not their governments are effective in safeguarding the ends of those rights, which are natural and universal to human nature, and which cannot be legislated any more than gravity can. This is a truth often disregarded in our society today. As Russell Kirk put it, ever since Paine's Rights of Men was published, the notion of inalienable natural rights has been embraced by the mass of men in a vague and belligerent form, ordinarily confounding rights with desires. This confusion in definition plagues society today, notably in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, drawn up by the United Nations organization. 30 articles and a somewhat greater number of rights defined therein, including the right to free education, the right to, quote, enjoy the arts, unquote, the right of copyright, the right to an international order, the right to, quote, the full development of personality, unquote, the right to equal pay, the right to marry, and a great many more which actually are not rights at all, but merely aspirations. The conservative adage that all radical, quote, natural rights, unquote, are simply, in substance, a declaration of the right to be idle is suggested in Article 2. Quote, everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay, unquote. This lengthy catalogue of, quote, rights, unquote, ignores the two essential conditions which are attached to all true rights. First, the capacity of individuals to claim and exercise the alleged right. Second, the correspondent duty that is married to every right. If a man has a right to marry, some woman must have the duty of marrying him. If a man has a right to rest, some other person must have the duty of supporting him. If rights are confused thus with desires, the mass of men must feel always that some vast, intangible conspiracy thwarts their attainment of what they are told is their inalienable birthright. Burke, and after him Coleridge, perceiving this danger of fixing upon society a permanent grudge, frustration, tried to define true natural right and true natural law. The concept of rights as codified in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights are very different from the mere aspirations that parade themselves as rights in our society today. Almost anything anybody wants can be in some way framed as a right. And then, of course, you are the enemy of rights if you oppose them on that thing that they want. Ultimately, in addition to the conditions Kirk laid out, true natural rights come from God via human nature, not from the government. The government cannot create them, it can only safeguard their ends, or fail to do so. So on Independence Day, Americans commemorate the creation of a safeguard for their rights, which came about in the late 18th century. while the rights themselves existed from time immemorial and will continue to exist whether the government is an effective safeguard of their ends or not.